Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, people are joining in the live. How have you been? Hope you're doing good. Good evening or good afternoon or good morning, wherever you're from. Maybe if you're in US, this is good morning for you. If you're joining from UK, this is good afternoon. And people from India, good evening. A warm greetings to each one of you. So thank you for joining our live. Um, we are organizing this as we celebrate Madras Day today, August 22, right? Why are we celebrating Madras Day? The city Madras was started establishing in the Madras was founded in August 2 in 1639, almost 381 years back then. So as that event to celebrate this mighty old city, we are organizing this live. Um, few of you would have joined last week's live as a part of Madras Day celebration, and this live is going to be something different from the previous week's live. So Chennai or Madras, or this region gave or has been giving several philosophers, spiritual masters. And one such great philosopher is J.K. Jittu Krishnamurti. And today's talk is about this great man and his teachings. Why is K-Turns organizing this live? K-Turns is a comfort budget curated corporates and student travel designer and an organizer in nature adventure, heritage culture, and spiritual wellness theme. So and myself, I'm Ajay Vaiti. I have been doing shows in radios, televisions, and now I'm doing shows in. I have an individual podcast, and also I'm doing a travel podcast for the Ketans in the name En Route. You can check out in Google Podcast or Spotify. In every podcasting platforms we are available. So don't worry, I'm not going to talk about JK and this teaching because to talk about the great master and this great philosopher, we need a person, an expert in this field. So today we have Mr. Chandrasekhar, who is a spiritual coach and a meditation master who has a deep understanding of the human mind. He has insight into various schools of thought in philosophy, psychology, and spirituality, and has been giving lectures on various topics. He has been teaching Sarva Rupa Dhyanam, a form of meditation. He is also a part of spiritual organization Bhagavat Mission, which is led by Sri Bhagavat, a living enlightened guru. So this event is all solely dependent upon uh, Mr. Chandrasekhar, and the screen is all yours. We know when we are doing events on stage, we will pass on the mic and say that the stage is all yours, but we are going on a live in a Facebook stream. So the screen is all yours, Mr. Chandrasekhar. Take it. And before I give the screen to you, I have been asking this to a few people, for you college students, a few of my friends, and a few of the school kids even. What do you think about philosophy, psychology, or spirituality? And do you think if it is really necessary in present day? And the feedbacks or the perceptions that I received from the school students or the college students were really amusing because what I thought was people are unaware of the fact or unaware of spirituality or psychology or philosophy, but they gave a very simple explanation. I'm actually giving a bottom line of all the feedbacks that I received from. They say that psychology is something where we understand the human mind and how they behave in various situations, and philosophy is something how a human should behave the right way to behave in the right situations, and spirituality is something um, which gives a set of rules or guidelines where we can lead a disciplined lifestyle. So, and few students even said that if I'm asked to talk about spirituality, I will talk about it the whole day. But the thing is, I'm not ready to talk, or if I start talking to my peers, they may judge me, they may call me as a godman, or they may refrain me from participating in normal parties or eating pani puris in the street ends. So they actually have this hesitation that if they talk about spirituality or psychology or philosophy, they may get refrained from their peer group. But individually, when I went through and asked them, everybody are interested in this topic and everyone have a great opinion about these three topics. So I thought of summarizing this to you before you start the topic. And now it's all yours, Mr. Chandrasekhar.
Thank you, Vaidi. Thank you very much for the beautiful introduction. And I welcome everyone. Thanks for joining this session. So, yeah, nice to meet you all in this evening time. Before going directly to the great philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti, let us first inquire what the need of philosophy in first place. Why we need philosophy, or why we need any teachings. Basically, human mind is surrounded by so many unknown factors. They call it as thrownness. It is something like that. Human being, a human baby, has been thrown into the existence without any explanation. There is no explanation why I should be born in this time, to this parent, in this economical condition, with this type of intelligence, with this type of attraction or beauty, or any such attributes is questionable, or we don't have an answer. So they call it as thrownness. So the very human existence by nature is filled with complete, or most of the things are unknown to us. So we have to navigate in this world with surrounded by so many unknowns. Not only we are surrounded by so many unknowns, we also have the knowledge that we are vulnerable. So our body, our physical body is very limited. So we can only see through some speeds. We can hear only sounds that's coming nearby. And my body has to be maintained by a certain temperature. If it goes below or above, my body will collapse. My body is not a very strong or thick or compared to iron. My body has a lot of limitations. And beyond that, there is something called mortality, death. So death can happen at the end, or it can happen at any point of in my life. This is the horrible situation that every human mind has to face. So we have a lot of unknowns, we have a lot of limitations, and we have mortality with certainty. So without we creating any further problem, we are born with certain problems. That's what we call our existential crisis. So the moment a baby is born, it is in crisis. So it has to sort out all these problems. In addition to this problem, we have our own natural needs, body requirements, psychological requirements, all those stuff. So yeah, philosophy helps us to navigate through life with minimum problems. Otherwise, we will be in lot of crises and facing lot of problems in our life. So if you understand that the human mind basically is surrounded by so many complexities, unknowns, limitations, and mortality, and our basic requirements, and how to navigate smoothly with all these stuffs inside the life and come out with minimum difficulties. So this is the basic problem. And here comes many masters, many philosophers, many social activities, and they give their own theory and own philosophy. It's like a map. They give a map and ask us to take that map and ask us to navigate through life and see whether this map produces any difficulties in your life. So everybody is trying to help us by providing some guidelines and philosophies. One such philosophy which has helped many people is Jiddu Krishnamurti's philosophy. So let us directly jump into few of his beautiful concepts. Choiceless awareness. So instead of be talking more about what is awareness, what is choiceless awareness, what does it mean, where is that state, how to reach that state, is the state same like other states? Instead of inquiring all about these questions, what right now we will do is let us experience choiceless awareness right here and now. Let us try for a couple of minutes. So let us sit in a comfortable position wherever you are. Just for 2 or 3 minutes, let us sit in silence. You can see that the awareness is already emanating, already it's on. There is no need to go and find or search awareness. If you just sit, the awareness is radiating itself, it announces itself. Just recognizing it is more than enough. Just recognize that awareness is already there. And the awareness is not choosing anything. So here we are not searching anything. We are not going to reach any destination. So by nature, the awareness is choiceless. Just recognizing that this choiceless awareness, let us be here for a couple of minutes, and then we will continue further. You can open your eyes or close your eyes, whatever comfortable for you. Just recognize the awareness. Thank you. Thank you for being silent. Hopefully, you might have experienced the awareness and its nature. Here, we are not doing any analytical work or dogmatic work. We are just directly experiencing the awareness that is within us. Just recognizing that the awareness is choiceless by nature liberates us. Just we are identifying that we are already liberated. We are already in choiceless awareness. So I think if somebody has any questions right now about this choiceless awareness or this meditation right now, what we have done, we will discuss for some time and then we can further proceed into other topics. So anybody having questions can raise your hand. There is an option in your screen. Vaidi, you can ask people if they have any questions right now.
Hi, if you have any questions related to the choiceless awareness that we practice right now, you can ask. If you're connecting through Facebook, you can go to your comment section and ask your questions. Feel free to ask, he's there to answer us. And if you're connected through Zoom, you can raise your hands and ask questions if you have related connected to this awareness. We have few more topics that is coming up. But if we have few questions, we can clarify and we can move further. Okay, before that, I have a personal question. When we were trying, or when I was, let me talk about myself first. When I was trying to practice awareness or trying to observe the real nature of it, there were so many thoughts that were coming up. The thoughts, the works that I have been doing all the week, the noises I mean by not the real physical noises, the inner noises that we experience, the thought, the emotions that we experience. We just try to practice stillness for 2 minutes, but they were coming up. So am I practicing the awareness in the right way, or am I concentrating too much on the thoughts or the emotions that I have been experiencing all this week?
Yeah, so usually what happens, we sit down, the thoughts in us, the past memory or the incidents that happened in past rushes in our mind, and it will slowly, the thoughts subsides, maybe after a couple of days or a week later. So there is no need to force the stillness, or there is no need to bring forth the stillness. So once the thoughts loses its own power, the stillness automatically is at the substratum. So when we try to bring the stillness, then again it will produce thoughts, and again it will produce conflict, and again it will produce efforts. So the best way is to allow your thoughts and memories to come to your surface, that the emotion surfaces itself and expresses itself and vanishes itself. So if you just allow it, the momentum slowly decreases in days. And the next thing is obviously the stillness rises. So there is no need for you to bring forth the stillness or to drag the stillness into your mind. You need further explanation, Vaidi?
Great. Thank you so much. I think I got my answer. Even Geeta Venugopal had the same doubt, it seems, and she wanted to know, is there any way to control the thoughts?
Yeah. So the same answer, we will put it in a different way. What we want is peace. So what we usually do is, if I want something, the physically, some object, we will try to pull it. We'll try to bring this to us. In the same way, what we are trying to do is, we are trying to pull the peace. We're trying to bring peace inside our mind. And we have tried for years and we have tried so many methods and everything has failed. Once it fails, then we just take a look inside the mind. When I want something, why it's not happening? So what we learn is about mind, the peace. We want peace, there is no doubt about it, but we try to bring peace, it creates conflict because we are restless. Now we want to push this restlessness and bring peace. What it happens is this emotional system, which is restless, the intellect says, I don't want you. So this tries to push away and this doesn't want to go. So a conflict happens. So we want peace, but the path to peace is not bringing or following peace. The path to peace is accepting the conflict. So when the restlessness is there, when the anger is there, when any unpleasant emotion is there, usually the intellect fights. So what, and this is a failure method, we know that. So what right now we are telling is, let the intellect allow this emotional system, allow this unpleasant emotions to be there. And in this allowingness, in this love space, the emotional system naturally dissolves itself and creates a beautiful peace. So peace is happens, but in a backdoor way, not in a front way. We just drag the peace. We allow the restlessness to be there, and what naturally happens is peace comes to us in a back door. So that's what we need to do, and we need to understand about it.
Thank you so much, sir. Actually, yeah, I would like to add to this. What I observed is when I was trying to control my thoughts, when we were practicing stillness, when I was trying to control my thoughts, I was getting some not so unpleasant thoughts. So I was trying to control them. The moment I started to trying the control thoughts, the thoughts started to aggravate. So I'm getting my answer with the statement that you said before. So
Yeah, your
accepting
observation
conflict.
is right.
So
Yeah, right.
accepting conflict should be my solution.
Yeah, right, right, Vedi.
Thank you so much. So I think in this topic, the questions are done. So
Okay. So another beautiful statement J. Krishnamurti made is, there is no need for psychological evolution. Psychological evolution. This is the beautiful term he coined, and there is no need for this psychological evolution. What a beautiful statement. What we are doing here, thousands of years, thousands of people, we are trying to make our mind to put it in ice status and not to be disturbed. And we think that we need to evolve our mind. We need to make our mind pure, 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 purer. And one day it will become pure. And the mind is right now restless. And we have to practice peace, peace. And one day it will become peaceful. And any unwanted emotions, any dirty emotions are coming now. Slowly I will discipline myself so that one day I will become free of all dirty emotions. So this is what we have been told and practicing, that our mind needs an evolution. So right now I am not perfect, I am imperfect, incomplete. One day I will become complete. So this is the philosophy we had been taught and we had been practicing. And J. Krishnamurti right away comes and dismisses the whole game. What he says is, right now here we are complete. There is no need for evolution. This is a beautiful statement. And how we need to understand this. Why he says there is no need for psychological evolution. we have two components: intellectual system, that is our intelligence, and emotional systems. The intelligence says that the emotional system is not right away behaving properly. So this is creating a lot of anger, lot of lust, lot of fear. So this intellect has to go on rectify this emotional system. This is what the intellect is trying by doing meditation, by following the masters, by going to ashrams, by doing japa, by disciplining the mind itself. So the intellect, what it does is it tries to make the emotional system to be perfect. But in actuality, what we need to understand is this emotional system is beautifully designed and it's beautifully operating for millions of years. And there is nothing to be changed. Only the intellect has to understand that emotional system is already in perfect shape. It's already complete. It's already productively, effectively designed. Only the intellect is not understanding this. So intellect understands once this emotional system is perfectly designed, then it stops changing this emotional system and the love and the peace happens automatically. So the problem here is the intellect is what the problem creator, and it poses itself that it is going to problem solver. I'm going to solve. But in first place, that is the one which is creating the problem itself. I may give an example. It is something we appoint a driver to our car. So the driver drives for a few kilometers and says, "What is this? This is not nice," and he throws something away out of the car. And what he says, "Why we need a brake? Only we need to go forward. We don't need brake. We don't need accelerator. We don't need steering." He throws away everything. What the person should understand is he has to learn to driving. The car system is already in perfect shape. There's a purpose for accelerator which need to go forward, and there is a brake which stops going. If you see, both are opposite. This one has to go forward, one has to stop going forward. But both has to be there. We need fear, we need anger, we need lust, we need greediness, everything we need it. But only thing is we need to know how to use it. That thing only the driver has to learn. Instead of he's trying to learn things, he start accusing the system. So that's what's happening in our intellectual system. So what we should know is there is no need for any improvement in emotional system. This the intellect has to understand. Once it understands, the liberation happens the very moment itself. The very conflict dissolves. The very fight between the emotional system and intellectual system right away stops. So any clarification you need in this topic, we can discuss right now.
If you have, same procedure. If you have any doubts on this, you can type in this chat box. People who have joined through Zoom, you can type in the chat box. And also people who have joined through Facebook, you can feel free and type in your chat box. And even people who have joined through Zoom, you can raise your hands so that we can yes. Mr. Praveen has a doubt.
Yes, Praveen.
Hi, thanks for the chance. Yeah, a quick one. You just mentioned that the intellect should understand that all the emotion is coming for the right reason. How do we go about that? I mean, to say, let's put an example like, let's say I have a stage fear. I have public speaking stage fear. And every time I go in public speaking and I want to speak, the emotion doesn't allow me to do it. Okay. So at this moment, my intellect or myself, what I think is, oh, my emotion is actually not supporting me. So, and automatically it fights it. And this goes back to the point you just spoke a while ago as well. When we did that awareness teaching at the moment you just did. And I also found that the fight itself is uncontrollable again. Yeah, so I'm not choosing to fight the thoughts, but I also find that I'm fighting the thoughts that's uncontrollable as well. So there's two questions in that. How do I actually my intellect understand that all the emotion what is coming to me is actually helping me? But the reality is I don't see that. Thank you. That's my question.
Yes, Praveen, you were maybe we will take an example. So we have a alarm clock or something red. It will make sound when something goes wrong. So our emotional system is something like that. So when something is in crisis, you have to go to a stage, and you need to face the audience. And facing the audience is not a natural stuff. It's not a casual talk. So you need to deliver something, and so many human beings like you are there. It's their valuable time. They're coming and sitting. So naturally they will expect something, and you need to meet up their expectations. So these expectations are there. So that naturally creates a crisis. And what the emotion says is, it's an important time. It's not just a chit chat talk that we do in our tea shop or in our with our friends or with our neighbors. This is an important event. So you need to gear up, you need to stand up, and you need to rise. These stuffs, it says in the form of emotion. What it says is, something important is going to happen. Get ready. That's what the emotion says. That's what the alarm sound, red alarm color indicates us. But what the intellect does by default, as you say, it starts to cover the red light. It starts covering the red light, thinking that this is what they're making the problem. But what the intellect has to understand is that red light is not the problem. It's only the indicator. Just take the indicator as an indicator and go and see the actual problem. The actual problem is somewhere else. So that problem need to be addressed. Instead of that, what we're doing is we're trying to cover with a sheet or cover, or trying to make it a different color. Something we're trying to do with the emotion system. Emotion system is just an indicator. When something is wrong there, go and see what it indicates and what is wrong and attend that. And there is nothing to be done by the indicator is already perfectly working. So there is no need for our intelligence to work on the alarm clock or the emotional system. Once we understand this, the intellect slowly starts not to interfere with the emotional system. So this understanding we need to bring forth to our intelligence. You need further clarification, Praveen, or this is enough?
So even the habit of my uncontrollable intellect going and poking its nose in the emotional system, even when you come to this understanding, that slowly subsides as well.
Yeah. So by habit, it just jumps on the emotional system. But we have put an idea that there is no need to jump right now. Slowly it will take time, and it will start interfering with the emotional system. So even if it interferes, let us not make it as a big deal, because we had understood. So slowly it will take its own course.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Praveen, for that question, because many of us got few clarity with that question. So any other questions if you have on this particular topic on psychological evolution, or you can post in the Facebook chat. Can I please? Yeah, Geeta has a question, sir.
Yes, madam.
Yes, sir. You said like, no, we have to, whenever there are the emotions are coming, the intellect has to deal with it properly. But not only for me, I would say for every human being, when there is somebody is slinging mud on you, they are telling, they are bursting out their emotions on you. It takes some time for a human being to work with the intellect. Immediately, we tend to react. But if we give a pause, then intellect works, and we just try to, as you said, the peace comes into our mind, and then maybe after some time we may realize I too should not have reacted like that. But how do we get this pause? How do we think when the moment somebody throws mud on us, the next reaction will be like, I need to react and I have to do something in return, where how the intellect has to come there and tell us like, don't react. So this is something I think very difficult for I would say for every human being to practice.
Yes, madam. So your question is, so when an incident happens, when a crisis happens, what the emotions rises immediately. So the emotions rises immediately, how to control it. So the basic thing we need to understand is our emotional system is just an indicator of the physical situations. So when the physical situation is not good, the emotional system has to reflect it. It has to create a unpleasant feeling within us. That way it creates a reflection of the physical system. So when a person enters into my room, whom I usually don't like or whom I had a lot of fight with him, as soon as a person enters, how the emotional system will indicate us is, it will create an unpleasant feeling. Somebody whom you don't want is entering your room. So it will indicate only in that way. So that indicator is working perfectly. So there is no need to control that indicator. So we should thank the indicator, acknowledge the indicator, or even you can thank the indicator. Thanks for creating unpleasant emotion in me and reflecting that person's actual status. So the emotional system job is over. So we have now the intellect is there. There's another component called intellect. So the intellect, what it says is, it studies the emotion and it has a lot of choices. So this person really this time also can hurt me. So I should be very careful and I should avoid him. Or this person had done a few mistakes few times before, a few years before. So let us give him another chance and see how it works. So the intellect has a lot of options. So intellect did not follow the emotion indication. It can take the emotional indication and can have a lot of choices around it. So we can have a lot of choices if you are not fighting with the emotion. Most of the intellectual energy is wasted with fighting with the emotional system. So once you understand that the emotional system is just an indicator and it is just indicated and gone, it's now the job of the intellect to take over the situation and what to act and what not to act, what to say, all those stuff. So if you can clearly demarcate the emotional role and intellectual role, you can easily play with these situations, madam.
Thank you. Ji. Very well said.
Thank you. Thank you, madam.
Ji, there is one more question, one more person who wanted to ask for a doubt. Can he ask now?
Yes, Vaidi.
Yeah, sir.
Yes, sir, you can ask your question. I didn't hear anything.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Yeah. As you said, the psychological evolution. When we see actually look at the basic of the relationship, we always have the image about everybody, including the nature, everything. Actually, this image maker is there. Actually, image maker is there. So we will have all about everybody, about the information which we every day we interact with the people. So we build an image about that person. But actually, when we closely watch it, when I was watching all the things, so it is in a being level communication. That is the thing that in this aspect of life. When we come about a life, because always JK being always talk about being. So the being level interaction is a real interaction when we say it. So, but when reality in this world, we always have an image, and through the image only we have a interaction with the people, whether it is a nature or it is a human being. So how to come about this? Because we all build a psychological image, actually telling everybody, including if I see my family, I have image about my mother, my image about wife, but without image, is there any communication with a being level?
Okay, thanks for the question, Vengat. So, as JK points out in many of his talks, that being is the only way of relating with life. You need to pursue directly. You should not label. The mind should not interfere with the object. Yeah, that's absolutely right. There is no doubt about it. But the other part is there, that is becoming. So we have two components, being and becoming. So becoming is our cognitive thinking. So we need our past, we need our future, we need our labels, and we need our concepts, we need our memory. All these stuffs are needed to interact in the marketplace. Once you come out of the marketplace, there is no need to use label to explain to your own mind. You can just be there as a being, directly perceiving things without any labels, without any words, without your mind talk or voiceover that's going at your background all the time. That you can stop when you are in being. But once you are in becoming, or when you are interacting with the world, you need labels, you need concepts, you need memory, you need past, you need future, and this is a different world. So you need a being and you need a becoming. So both these entities are needed. For example, becoming, we need labels. Why we need labels? If I order or if I book a call taxi, car comes and a driver comes. So I go and sit behind the driver and the car goes, and I interact with that person by labeling as a driver or a person who takes me from here to there through car. So if he does that job perfectly well, that's more than enough. I have to see whether he drives properly. He takes me to that location. So I need not go into complexities of his whole life. He may have a family. He may have a parent who is sick, or he may be different following different philosophy, or he may be atheist. So this person is a complex person with multiple dimensions and problems and attitudes. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reduce all those complexities into a simplification through abstraction. So if he drives properly from here to there and does the job of a driver, that's more than enough. So we can interact with the world only through labels, and this is a great ability of the human mind. So that's why we can conceptually reduce people to a small label. So that's why we are able to cooperate with each other. Otherwise, a complete person is very difficult to handle. So that's why he takes into a role. When he shortens to a small role, and I shorten to a small role, we can easily able to interact. So marketplace is only through labels can function efficiently, and that's why we are successful. At the same note, this label also reduces people. And if I take the same attitude when I am alone or sitting alone and try to reduce everything as a label, I will miss the life. I will not feel like oneness with anything. So there I have to drop the label. In being, I have to drop the label. In becoming, I have to take the label and use it effectively. That will create success. So we need to understand both these aspects. Unfortunately, what happens is in the external material world, people talk more about becoming. Or once we come up the spiritual side, they talk about being and they try to neglect the becoming. But in actuality, the both is needed. Venkat, you need any clarification?
Yes, yeah. Actually, that the sensitivity of the being, when we come to the practical external world, so that sensitivity of being is very. I feel it is very important, because when we always stuck with the materialistic world, so we don't respect the being level, because when we are aware that the being is also being sensitivity to the being also needed in a practical world. I feel like that. Yeah, that means the being sensitivity also needed in the practical world.
Yeah, sensitivity is also needed to some extent only. There more becoming is more important, labeling is more important. For example, even here, we two are able to interact only through labeling. See, I not know about your family members or your family problems, all those stuffs. You reduce yourself to a spiritual entity and you have some spiritual questions you are interacting with me. Similarly, I am also reducing myself. What's my interest? What films I watch? Or how do I eat breakfast? How do I plan my day? These things you will not worry about. Even my financial condition, all this you will not worry about. You worry about my spiritual teachings only. So we can able to interact only through labeling, only through reduction. And this reduction is very important to interact. So we need to understand both the importance of labeling and the cons or difficulties of this labeling also. Then we can wisely use both the stuffs.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Very clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkat.
So there is one last question relating to this topic. Kantaraj asked this question, that is, in being, in family, I play different role. So it's also labels, right? Please clarify.
Yes. Even when we relate to ourselves, it is labeling. So relating to family members is also labeling. So even without conceptual thinking, we can't relate or we can't talk to any person. So labeling is one of the most important thing that we need to learn how to use effectively. So when it is not needed, we should not use it. So that's where we are getting stuck up. This labeling is very useful and very productive, and we are getting a high successful rate in the world. So we start using labeling. We try to reduce every person to a role, to some small box, and we jungle with all this box. That's useful in the marketplace. But we should leave this habit when we come to home, when we sit alone, or when we talk to our children or animals. There we need not have a role. We can just relate as a being.
Thank you so much for the detailed explanation. I think the questions for this particular topic is done.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me take a couple of minutes. So another important topic JK discusses conditioning. So this also we need to understand. So as we said, the being doesn't have any conditioning, and the becoming has conditioning, labeling, putting inside the box, everything. So we should get rid of conditioning. That will liberate us. So that is, we have to fall into being, where this conditioning is not applicable, where the pure perception as a person, as a energy, as a choiceless awareness is more than enough. Right now, this very choiceless awareness, I use two words. it doesn't have any word or any label attached to it. It's just an awareness. So this awareness is completely unconditional. So with this awareness, I can be sitting for an hour or more whenever I find time, or I can relate to my child with this simple awareness. So conditioning is not needed in the being. But once we enter into the marketplace, becoming where the cognitive thinking is needed, where the past and future has to be called for, where the memory we need to use. So there, the conditioning naturally operates. So there we will not fight the conditioning. So in the physical world, we need conditioning. In the emotional world, there is no need to segregate between the right emotion, wrong emotion, any emotion, unpleasant or pleasant emotion. That's us. That's our awareness. So we should not cut and throw some part. We should not condition that only good emotions should come. Unpleasant emotions should go away. So this conditioning we need to remove from the being. And in becoming, it is not a problem. It is needed. Only in being, we need not, there is no need condition saying that I need only pleasant emotion. Unpleasant emotion is not me. Only pleasant emotion is me. So this is conditioning. The intellect says this is what conditioning is, and my emotional system has to follow it. So this conditioning, we can remove it from the being. So once we understand this conditioning, it too liberates us. Thank you. That's what I want to say today. Any questions regarding this or any other general questions? We have 5 to 10 minutes.
There is one question, sir, that I saw in the chat box. That is, mind is created more complex, not like other senses. We use all sense without extra knowledge, but mind we need extra knowledge. Why God or nature creates human mind like that?
As you said, the mind is also a sense, but it's a very complex sense because it has to deal with the memory, past, and it has to project itself into future, and we have to do planning, and we have to cooperate with the other people who are doing planning, and we have to meet in the future and achieve something in the future. All this stuff has to happen. This can happen only we have that cognitive thinking. So thinking is a very effective tool. That's why we are ruling this world. We are building bridges, skyscrapers, lot of trains, flights, Wi-Fi, internet, everything is because of thinking. So this thinking has a lot of benefits. At the same time, it starts interfering with the emotional system also. What it says is, I had achieved so many things in the outside world. Why can't I control my emotional system? I'm controlling the external world. So why not I control my emotional system? So it starts interfering with the emotional system. And sooner or later, it will find that it's not possible to control the emotional system, and it surrenders. What we call the surrender in bhakti or choiceless awareness, what JK uses, is the same thing. The intellect stops interfering with the emotional system. Sooner or later, it happens. Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions? You can go on ask in the chat box. Okay, before that, I'm not sure if this question is relevant or not. I just wanted to ask this questions connecting with the present youths, because they are what I saw with for the past 3-4 days. I was trying to ask them about philosophy and psychology and spirituality. What is their perspective about these three topics? They seem to be really interested, but they feel like talking spirituality, or people are ready to talk about psychology, but talking spirituality or even philosophy they consider it as like taboo, because we come from a place where um, India, India is known for its culture and known for its spiritual practices. But present days, this generation have become in such a way that if we talk spiritual or if we talk philosophy, we will be refrained from the peer group. So, say if they are of a group of 10, almost 8 of them think in a similar way and refrain themselves from talking spiritual. So, is there any solution or is there any tips that we would like to give to the present age?
Yeah. So their seclusion, their isolation is also an intelligent act, because the past was like that. The spirituality has associated itself with tradition, with kavi, with saffron, and a big beard. In ashram, in forest, the person has to be there. But right now, the situation is not like that. And one of the pioneers of creating this revolution is Jiddu Krishnamurti. He created his own terminology. He is not using any words like God, Atman, Brahman, or any of the things that has been used so far. So he is the first person who defined and coined a new terminology for the spirituality, because this spirituality has nothing to do with religion or tradition or anything else. This is pure mind mechanism, pure psychology. So following from JK, many masters have adapted the path, and people are right away slowly getting one with the spiritual teachings. So it's happening, but it's happening very slowly. Any further comments, Vaidi?
Yeah, just a minute. I'm just seeing if there is any additional questions in the chat box. Okay, I don't think so. I think people are really clear with the explanations.
Okay.
So, do you have anything else to address about this?
I think so. If let us wait for a couple of minutes. If
I
somebody
think,
asks, we
I
can.
think, yeah. Okay, there is one question. How
Okay.
to improve our intelligence system?
Mhm. So intelligence will be awakened when you have suffering. It will automatically awaken. So when you face problem, when you face crisis, the intelligence awakens itself and it tries to sorts out the situation or the crisis. So there is no need to separately increase the intelligence. So when you face the situation honestly, the intelligence awakens it. So let us not worry about how to increase intelligence, because it's already is intelligent. Only when it faces the situation, it will start operating. So if you're honest with the problem, that's more than enough. The intelligence will awaken itself.
Great. Hope you got your answer, Mr. Narayanan. Yeah, Praveen has a question. Praveen, can you ask your question shortly?
Yeah, a quick one. Can I ask, when did we ever lose this capability of going back to being and having this demarcation of being and becoming? Like, the main problem after listening now, I feel like we aren't becoming all the time and we don't ground ourselves in being. So in our life, when did we actually lose this, or even we ever add that capability?
So usually how the child's life happens is till 13, we are very innocent. Innocent means that we are not, it doesn't mean that we are not angry, we are not afraid, but everything rolls away easily. The child will be happy one time, the next moment it will be angry sometime, and it will forget about and again go and relate with the same person without having the memory that I fought with this person yesterday. Today morning I should not smile at this person. I should not smile with my father. Yesterday he didn't buy me these things. It forgets that emotional state, and easily mingles with the person who created the anger. So this happens till 13 or 14, something like that. So after the 13 years, the intellect grows slowly. So the intellect grows, and it has to grow because only through intellect it can take care of itself. A child cannot take care of itself. So the intellect grows, it demarcates, it cuts certain things. I want these things, I don't want these things. It uses memory, it segregates, these are my friends, these are my foes. So I should not mingle with that person. So intellect is needed in order to navigate in this world. So intellect is needed, and it has its purpose. But slowly what happens is, it starts loses its innocence gradually. So at the age of 30 or 40, slowly the intellect grows and grows and grows, and the innocence part is, we are losing completely out of touch. And this creates a crisis. So this crisis only makes you to ask this question. So how to regain my innocence back? So I have to be intelligent and also has to regain my innocence. That's why we have a term called innocence regained. Liberation is innocence regained. We had that innocence, but we have to lose it to gain it. So we can't gain without losing it. That's how it is like that. So first we had it, then we have to lose it, and then we have to search and get it back. Then only it becomes us. If we ask a child about the innocence, it can't say anything. It will be in innocence, but it is not aware of the innocence. Only if we as an adult consciously gain that innocence, we will be aware of that innocence and will be enjoying the innocent state and as well as the intellect. So this is the third phase. So first phase is pure innocence. Second phase is pure intellect. Third phase is both intellect and innocence. This is what we call liberation, mukti, or choiceless awareness, or living in the present moment without ego, or any positive terminology. What we use is, we are gained the innocence and we are also having the intelligence. So this is what the evolutionary of human mind, you can, in a crude way, you can take it up like this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Praveen.
There is a question from Krishna Kumari. She says that one of Jiru's philosophy is freedom from the known. How can we free from the known?
Yeah, freedom from the known. So that's what we said in conditioning. So in conditioning, what conditioning happens only through past memory, all those stuffs. So when we are in the becoming, you are conditioned and you have memory, you have past, everything. So once you fall into being, you are free from the past memory, conditioning, everything. So what he is talking about is being. So if you fall from becoming to being, you are free from the conditioning, free from the past, or whatever you like to call it. You need further clarification, or this is enough?
Krishna Kumari got your answer, or you need further or you have further questions on this particular topic? I think it was clear.
Okay, thank you.
So any other questions? Anyone have any questions? You can either ping us in the chat or you can raise your hand. Last one or two questions, sir, maybe?
Okay, I think we can. end the session. So anything Srinivasan has to share, or you can speak.
There is a
Close the session.
question. There is one question. That is
Okay.
how enlightenment expressed by JK.
Mhm.
That is the question.
As we saw that he uses few terms like choiceless awareness, free from conditioning. There is no need for psychological evolution. Everything is pointing out to the same thing. The intellect has to give up his fight with the emotional system. So this very theme can be expressed in choiceless awareness. For example, what is choiceless awareness? What is, first of all, choosing awareness? Why we choose in the awareness? Why we choose is we want something in the future. In time, we have to travel in time. So anything you want to travel in time using past and future is a cognitive function. It's an abstract conceptual function. So there is no destination. It's only abstract destination. So you can't reach. So if you start choosing that, you are caught. So what he says is choiceless awareness. We have awareness. Just by sitting, we can feel the awareness. It's beautifully there. And it's choiceless by nature. This choicelessness gets chosen when we need something. So we need to think what we need to choose. So once we have clarity about that, the awareness is by nature choiceless. So that's what uses the word choiceless awareness for enlightenment. We uses many words. We can take this as few words as an indicator of enlightenment. Okay. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining the session.
Thank you so much. That was really great. And there is one last question, if I'm allowed to ask it.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, just a minute. Okay. In JK's words, seer and seen are the same. So people, they are asking for explanation on this with an example, if it is possible.
Maybe I will make it short. We don't have time.
Okay.
So what the seer, observer, observe, seer, seen is one. What does it mean is the mind sees itself. And what it sees is the same projection of the same mind. So the mind itself projects itself and sees the projection. So that's what he calls seer and seen. So anything that happens in this cognitive space, cognitive thinking is nothing but our own mind projecting itself as somebody else and seeing that as and considering it as something else and starts fighting. So once you understand that the anger which we are feeling and the identity which tries to get out of the anger is both the seen and the seer. The seen is anger. The seer is what we think I. So when we understand these two are not separate, these are one, we'll start fighting. Right now, what we have is assumption that the anger, the unpleasant emotions that are happening to us is something different that we can cut and throw it away. So until we have this assumption, we will try to cut and throw it away. Once we understand that seen and seer are one, observed and observer are one, we will stop cutting this and trying to demarcate these two things. Hope this explains your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So thank you so much for the wonderful session. And there is, if you have a minute's time, there is one last question, or can I ask?
We can finish it off. That will be better.
Okay. Okay, sure. So thank you so much. And guys, and I mean, people, if you have any questions further, you can actually post in the chat box. We will try reaching him when we get time, and definitely we'll try to get back from Chandrasekhar ji as soon as possible, if that is okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone.
Thank you so
for
much for your
joining.
time, and thank you so much for this brief explanation about the choiceless awareness, conditioning, and psychological evolution. Thank you so much. So much insights, and excited to
Thanks
know.
for, thanks for listening patiently. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. And also, we are organizing yoga retreats and spiritual trips. So, if you want to get in touch with that, you can, Facebook people, whoever are connected through Facebook Live, you can go into our contact information and try contacting us. And people who are here in this chat box, the number is displayed below. You can connect through that WhatsApp number. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Thanks.